What if we told you that even if you're playing one of the best scaling champions in the game, you never actually want to scale to late game? Would you believe us? Well, by the end of this video, you should. While your champion might scale into the late game, your teammates' brains do not. And that already makes late game super dicey no matter what you're playing. In general, early game mostly consists of 1v1, 2v2, and very rarely 3v3 fights. In these kinds of situations, you have 100%, 50%, and 33% agency respectively. You'll notice that as more people get involved, the amount of agency you actually have in fights starts to drop pretty significantly. Late game tends to be mostly 4v5 and 5v5 fights, where your individual contributions and how much better you are than the enemy starts to have less of an effect. If you were driving a car that was about to crash, would you rather have 100% control of the steering or only 20%? That's exactly my point. Once you get to late game, you're not going to find those 100% control situations very often. Instead, you'll likely end up having lots of car crash games where even though you got ahead early, you lose anyways. Because of this, good players know that they need to do everything they can to end the game as early as possible. Once they get a lead, they will do everything to make sure that lead closes the game out. Low elo players often have no problem finding initial advantages, but often struggle to convert those leads into a win, and we're going to identify exactly why that is. Let's get right into it, starting with a low elo Kha'Zix replay. In this game, Kha'Zix gets off to a really good start. His team ends up invading and catching their enemies off guard in their jungle. He picks up a kill, as well as several assists. And even though he does die, he secures the enemy's blue buff, and the enemy jungler is quite literally at 0 CS and level 1. I think it's quite obvious that a double longsword and level 2 to no items in level 1 is quite a significant lead, and if this were Challenger, this Kha'Zix would likely run away with the game altogether. However, let's just see what he does. He goes into topside to clear his blue and Gromp, and right as soon as that's done, crabs have just come up. As he's clearing it, he sees Morgana show mid trying for a gank. She's a level down, and remember that Kha'Zix is up 2 longswords here. He should really try to force this fight since they are clearly at a huge advantage. But he lets Morgana show mid like this and just walk off to bot side with absolutely no punishment. After seeing it, Kha'Zix decides to go top side and gank Akali. While he does get her flash, this is overall a really terrible decision for a couple of reasons. When you're ahead, the first thing you want to do is make the enemy feel pressured. Usually you can do this by just meeting them at their plays and playing into the same side that they're on. The worst thing that you can do is just trade plays across the map. If you go top while Morgana goes bot, it gives you the chance to do something without you interfering, and then through the power of math, your lead starts to shrink if you both just get equal gold or experience. If this happens multiple times, suddenly your lead shrinks to be almost non-existent, and then you end up in a car crash situation like we talked about earlier. In this spot, Kha'Zix's entire bot side is still up. By showing top without having red buff, Morgana has more than enough information to enter his bot side and take everything that's up in his jungle. Kha'Zix unfortunately can't do the same, since Morgana has already taken her red and raptors already. And even if she hadn't and Kha'Zix could counter jungle them, it'd still be a terrible trade for Kha'Zix since he'd just be going even at best. And with a lead, that's exactly what we don't want. Morgana shouldn't be allowed to exist on the map without being seriously concerned about Kha'Zix's existence the entire time. And through these beginning minutes of play, it's clear to see that Kha'Zix just didn't value playing into Morgana as much as he should have, and was very content with just letting her scale for free. If at any point he wanted to contest her, she'd be forced to back up and concede, or she would die in the process. Let's take a look at Challenger and see how the plays look completely different. Let's analyze some of Spica's gameplay to see what he does with his leads. This game starts off pretty similarly with a successful invade. However, right after the play, you can already tell that Spica is thinking about how to pressure the enemy jungler now and not let him get away with anything for free. He crosses through mid and only briefly pauses at his raptor camp to get a bit of XP in order to level up off the next camp. This also all but guarantees that he's for sure going to be on the same side of the map as Fizz. Since most of his topside camps are down, he really doesn't have a whole lot to do anywhere else and now has to interact with Leon bot side if he wants to do anything. However, Spica doesn't even want to sit around and wait for a crab to spawn or a fight for Fizz to have to interact with him. He's going to take the fight straight to him. He doesn't even get level 3 before going right into the enemy jungle and starting to take away camps. Of course, this is Challenger, so the enemy jungler knows this, and the only thing he can do is just go topside to soak XP off of the wave. which is not the best consolation prize, but at least he doesn't die. He just can't even touch camps for the most part. While he already took away 3.5 of Fizz's camps, when Spica sees that, he's going to make the absolute best use of the information and attempt to snowball the game even more. So from this position, what do you think Lee should try to do next? Making a play on bot side is the best way of punishing Fizz showing all the way on top. He can't exactly run all the way across the map without losing a ton of time, so a bot lane dive makes a lot of sense. He waited patiently and didn't show on vision, so that Fizz wouldn't know to invade his top side, and then when the wave does crash, he positions in a way such that Braum and Jinx can't do anything to escape. Without help from their jungler, they're dead 100%. In less than 5 minutes, he completely destroys the game. He took the one lead he got and just snowballed uncontrollably to the point where the game is already over, and he ended up absolutely dominating this game, ending it very quickly. Just to reiterate how Spica tends to do this every game he gets ahead, let's take a look at another replay. He's doing a pretty standard red side clear at the start, and after finishing Raptors, spots Kayn bot side with just his blue buff. Immediately, he looks to capitalize on this by interrupting his clear and going straight into Kayn's topside jungle. When he sees the opportunity to help out his mid laner, he lands a Q on Diana and ends up picking up a kill. Unfortunately, Kayn barely snipes Xerath with his W and gets a double kill because of it, but Spica still isn't out of the game yet. He runs to his top side after respawning and does a few camps while looking at his lanes to see if any ganks look viable. He sees top wave coming in and decides to try and punish the Fiora. Fortunately, the gank works out, and as an extra bonus, Kayn gets punished for attempting to counter gank. Now, Spica actually has a significant lead, so let's see how in the next 5 minutes he's going to turn the game on its head. He clears down to try and play into the same side as Kayn, and he's looking to try and leverage his newfound level lead. When he sees Kayn show, he immediately looks to counter gank and move towards mid. He waits outside of vision and baits this perfectly, counter ganking and then securing 2 more kills. Once again though, even getting a lead, Spica isn't happy. He's going to make sure it actually ends the game. He immediately looks to cash out on his level 6 and runs straight bottom to dive the Vayne. Even though he ends up dying here, it's extremely valuable to trade his death for hers. Not only does his bot lane secure plates, they also get to deny a couple of waves from Vayne, which is extremely valuable XP and gold that she absolutely needs to survive. This also gives Lee a pseudo reset, and as much as it looks like I'm glorifying his death, this really is a good play. Once again, he's going to look to push his lead to its absolute limit. He comes out of base and heads to Raptors, and afterwards, even though he has most of his other camps up, including his red buff, he goes straight to invade the Kayn to push his advantage and force the issue. Because he's behind enemy lines now in a spot that enemies don't expect, he can completely catch the support off guard and scores a free kill on him, and the top laner that tried to come help. After this, you might think he'd slow down to take the dragon or just go back to farming camps, but that just isn't enough. He walks into the enemy jungle to check to see if there's anything left up for Kayn to do. He wants to make absolutely sure that there isn't. He continues to just run around in his jungle to make his opponent's life a living hell, and ends up hunting him down along with several other members of the enemy team, ultimately finishing in a bot line dive that denies even more farm from the enemies and just sends the game into a complete spiral. This was yet another game where he took over early and just dominated. His CS average is pretty low, but when you're averaging a kill a minute, you really don't need to farm. In all of these examples, it should be apparent that Spica valued the pressure he could put down once he got a lead, and made sure to make the enemy jungler actually feel his advantage. If we look back and compare that to the low elo Kha'Zix who got a similarly huge advantage, yet didn't follow any of the principles of snowballing your lead that would let him carry, the contrast should be evident. When you're ahead, the main thing that you want to ask is, what is my advantage, and how can I pressure the enemy with it? From these examples, there are a few main ideas that you should try to take away. Playing into the same side as your opponent and avoiding giving your opponent counterplay, like taking your jungle to trade back evenly, is incredibly important. You need to make sure that they either don't have equivalent camps to take, or that you can get ganks off while they can't. In addition, skipping camps to get to plays on time and making your opponent work for everything, including their own camps, is key. Again, going 1-for-1 on camps isn't worth it from ahead, or your lead will shrink. So you have to do things that your opponent can't possibly trade for. Finally, look at the biggest advantage you can possibly get away with. This might seem like the obvious one, but a lot of players try to take it slow and not go for the throat when it comes to ending the game. You should treat every minute that passes as a game that's going more and more out of your control. There's a lot of pressure to end, and end early. And hopefully this video has shown that high-level players care a lot about that fact.
So you might be asking yourself, why go to SkillCapped.com to improve when I could just watch YouTube guides or play the game? Well, let me show you. Let's say you're a jungler who's struggling to climb the ladder. Not only would you get over 40 site-exclusive courses for jungle, but maybe really what you've been struggling with is ganking as a jungler. Well, we got you covered with 4 different courses breaking down how to gank when you're jungling. Not only do we have the largest catalog of guides for League of Legends in the entire world with over 1,500 videos to watch, but these are then curated by the top coaches and players into courses on every skill and topic you need to master in order to truly improve and climb the ladder. If all of this wasn't enough, we haven't even touched on our catalog of over 700 Smurf commentaries, where a challenger expert shows you how to climb out of your rank, and you're guaranteed to get any questions answered by them directly. Not to mention, we're the only service to offer a rank improvement guarantee. If you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a refund, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Head to SkillCapped.com and get the rank you've always wanted. Link in the description below.
Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.